Hilchei Shcheinim. Inyan Elo halachas. Now the Rambam, as we in Hilchas Chiyuv Matana, there were no mitzvahs. There's normally in every halachas, the Rambam tells us the mitzvahs that there are in these halachas. But there are certain halachas where there are no mitzvahs. The Rambam is discussing dinim, but there is no specific mitzvahs asay that are part of the Taryag mitzvahs. So in Hilchas Chiyuv Matana there were no mitzvahs, and in Hilchas Shcheinim there are no mitzvahs, and Behemshech we're going to have Hilchas Shluchim v'Shutfim, there are also no mitzvahs. Inyan Elo halachas leida din chiluk al kakois ben hashutfim. If you have karka and they are owned by shutfim, they're owned mutually by different people, and the question is, how do you divide that karka? If one of them wanted to be divided, how is the division made? What are the dinim of dividing karka ben hashutfim? That's number one. And also v'harchokas nezek echad mehem mishcheni mebala meitzer shalei. If you have two people that are bordering on each other, and the question is, each one, by doing what he's doing, he's hurting the other person. So the question is, how do you have to deal with making sure not to hurt the other person? When do you have the right? When don't you have the right? When is ala mazik laharchik esatzmi? When is ala nizik laharchik esatzmi? Etc. And also v'din bala meitzer. So there's a third din, which is the din of bala meitzer, which we mentioned already. That is that if someone owns a field next to someone else, and that person is selling it, so the Bala Meser could taina that he should have first right to buy it. And if someone else buys it, so the Bala Meser could come along to the buyer and say, no, that I have the right to buy it, therefore he'll pay the buyer what the buyer sold, what the buyer paid, and he'll take it away from the buyer. That's the din of Bala Meser. So there's three agdoras over here. One is the din of the chiluk ha-karkois ben hashutfim, to divide karka ben hashutfim, as when people are shutfim in karka, so how do you divide it? And also the harchakas hanezek between neighbors, or those people that own karka next to each other. How do you make sure that when is there a chiyuv to be marchik hanezek? How those didn't work? And the third din is v'din bala meitzer, someone that borders someone else's field, and he has rights to mun certain situations. He has a right to mun that he should be the first right to buy. Ubir kol adinam o'elo beprokim elu. Pay the Krishna. Echad akeni mechaveri. Now the Ram is saying a situation where people are shutfim. How did he become shutfim? So either echad akeni mechaveri chatzi sodeu, someone owned the field, and someone else went ahead and bought half of the field. Oy shnayim shekonu be'echad b'soda, konu me'echad soda, or two people bought together a field. Oy sheyarshu, or they yarshin together a field. Oy shenitla matona, oy sheziku bo min ha'hefker, or they were magzik on the field together, min ha'hefker, oy nichsi ager, kloli shel dover. No, the nekudas is kol sheyesh b'neim shutzes b'karka. There are two people that own a karka together. How do they own together? I'm giving different cases. Either one of them owned it first, and now he sold half of it to someone else, or they both bought it together, or they were both acquired it together. Menahefker, they both received it a matana together. They both acquired it together. Menahefker. In any case, they both own a karka together. Now, ubikash echad min hashutfim lachlik v'litel chelke levadi. One of them wants to divide. He wants to have a separate chelik. There's until now they owned it together. They were both shutfim, and now one of them wants to divide it v'litel chelke levadi. So here it depends. Im yesh ba'isech karka din chaluka, which we'll soon learn what a din chaluka means. What does it mean, a din chaluka? There's a din that this karka could be divided into two parts or many parts. So then this person that wants to divide it, and here's a chiddush, knows even though l'mashal there was someone that was originally the original owner, and now someone else comes along and he bought it, half of it from the original owner. He became a partner in the original owner. So nevertheless, he could insist that he wants to divide it. He wants to divide it. So the din is im yesh ba'isek karka din chaluka koife eshara shutfim v'chelkinimei. He could force the other shutfim to give him off a separate portion. They don't have to divide, but he should receive a separate portion that should be his, and they shouldn't be a shutf with them in this portion that's theirs. That's talking about if yesh b'din chaluka. So he could force them to divide it. However, v'im ein b'din chaluka, if it doesn't have a din chaluka, knows it's something which is not divisible, I will soon learn. So ein echad mem yochel lokuf es chaveri lachlik. So nobody could force the other one to divide the karka, or to divide whatever it is, because lepeil, since it's not something which, if you're going to divide it, it's something which is going to ruin everything. So therefore, it's not considered divisible, and therefore nobody could force the other person to divide. And this din is talking about by karka. V'chein adin b'metaltel. That same din applies to metaltel. Now, b'medvar mamurim, when we're saying the din of shutfim, that two people own something together, and the question, one of them is wanting to force the other one to divide. And now the question is, if yesh bedin chalukah, ein bedin chalukah, that's talking about mishein echad memakers chelki b'makom shein shutfa bei. No one has any specific place where he says, this is my place. Eliyat kula mishtamish b'chol hamakom. They're all using the entire area, and now one of them wants to come along and say, no, we don't want. We should all use the entire area. I want to have a private area for myself, and then we have to look whether or not it's yesh b'dei chalukah, ein b'dei chalukah. But if there was a particular area that this person recognized, and this was his area, this was what part that he owned, is even though that area is a small area and it's ein badin chalukah, is keife kol echad memes chaveri lahavdil ben chelke lechelek chaveri, to make a division. In other words, the person is telling, this is my area, and I want that there should be a wall in between my area and the other area, like we'll learn Behemshech, so that he could insist. In other words, so there's two dinim over here. There's one din is that when you have a general area that everyone's using together, and now one of them wants that I shouldn't use the area together. I want to use my areas. I want to have my private area. You should have your private area. So in order to take an area which they were all using together and nobody really had any specific part in it, and to divide it, so it depends if this area is divisible or it's not divisible. If yesh ba kedei chalukah or ein ba kedei chalukah, like we'll learn Behemshech. So if it's yesh ba kedei chalukah, so you could insist to divide it, and if it's ein ba kedei chalukah, you cannot insist. Masha'enkin, if it's really, there's an area in this place that's mine, that belongs to one person, and says this is his area. Now what he wants is that this area shouldn't be exposed to the other areas, but there should be a separation between his area and the other areas. So that's something he could always insist, even though his area is a place that Ebo Kedei Chalukah is not negeh. But Lepel, he has that area, and now he wants that area of his, which was really divided already, because that was really what he owns, should be separated from the other area. It's a different thing. You're not dividing it, but separating it. That's this din. So then, to separate ben chelke lechelek chaveri. Now, halacha beis. If we're dealing with a place ein b'yidei chalukah, which can't be divided, he says, either sell me your item for this and this, or buy me for this price. In other words, I'm willing to buy your part for a certain price, and but you have the choice. Either you'll sell me your part, so I'll have everything, or buy from me my part for that same price. So the din is hatin imay. So the din, he has a right to say that. In other words, if it's a place which yesh bo kedei chalukah, so he can't insist that to buy or to sell. That's the din of good yogurt. You can't insist that, because he says, listen, I don't want to buy, I don't want to sell, I want to have my part. And since it's a mokim sheyesh b'kedei chalukah, so therefore he could insist that he wants his part. Or if that person wants to buy or sell, he can say, listen, you have a right to divide your part from my part. But on the other hand, you can't force me to either buy or sell. So therefore, this din of forcing someone to buy or sell is only in a case when there's a situation where it's ein b'kedei chalukah. So therefore, neither of them could force each other to actually divide. But he's saying, I can't force you to divide, nor could you ask me to divide, because it's not really divisible. But on the other hand, I want to either buy you out, or you buy me out. You have the right. I can't force you that I want to buy you out, but I want to buy you out, and I'm giving you the right. You could buy me out for the same amount that I want to buy you out. That's this din. Is adin imay. And therefore, v'koifen is hanitva, you force the nitva, limker lechavera, either to sell to the person that's offering to buy it, or he could buy it from the other person. That's talking about in a case where it's ein b'kedei chalukah, and he's offering either I'll buy my chelik from you, or you buy my chelik for yourself. If the person is coming along and says, I don't want to buy, he doesn't have money to buy. He can't come to the other person and say, listen, you have to buy from me. In other words, I don't want to be together with you or shutif, and you don't have to buy to me. I feel like a shar azil. Even he says, I'll sell it to you for a cheap price. Because the other person can say, no, ain't it saying the shekna? I'm not interested in buying. I'm willing to sell. In other words, if you're offering to buy, so you could force that person, either I'll buy or you'll buy. Either I'll buy or you'll buy. Masha'enkin, if you're not offering to buy, so you can't force that person that he should buy. That person could always say, no, I don't want to buy. I'm willing to sell. Lefichach. Shnei achim, if you have two brothers, echad oni v'echad osher, sheiniach lemaviyam merchetz beis habat. They own together a merchetz, a bathhouse, or a beis habat, a place to press olive press. Now, in Osna Av L'Schar, if the father did it for business, in other words, he would go and rent it out, have people use it, and it's brought down, the Maggid Mishnah says that it doesn't mean what the intent of the father was. It's really the size of the olive press, or the size of the Beis HaMerchetz. Is it a private Beis HaMerchetz, or is it a commercial Beis HaMerchetz? Or is it a commercial Beis Habad? So if it's a commercial Beis Habad or a commercial Merchetz, so then it's Pasha, that's Schar Le'emtza, as long as they're still Shutfim, so they rent it out, or whatever, they use it commercially, and whatever profit it makes is lamtza. Calls mashir to lam l'shutfis. As long as they remain b'shutfim, so aschar is lamtza. That's pashut. However, and if for some reason or another they both decide to go out of shutfis, if one of them says good yogurt, so they have that choice. In other words, if one of them says either I'll buy you out or you buy me out, so then they have that choice. However, osana avla atzmei, if the father made it latzmei, in other words, it wasn't a commercial Beis Habad, there wasn't a commercial merchetz, it was more of a personal, for personal use. So then is Eini Yochel Lokav Ochiv Lahaskereso. So in other words, this, one of the brothers says, listen, I don't really have a use for this Beis Habad. I don't have a use for this merchetz. We own this together. Now I don't have a use for it, so I would like to rent it out. And the other brother is telling, no, I'm not interested in renting it out. I want to use it for my personal use, and I'm not interested in being rented out. So the din is, since they yarshened it together, and it's something which ain't b'kedei chalukah, so therefore they could continue, the brother could continue using it as it was originally meant to be used, as this is normally used, and the other person can't insist, no, we're going to start renting it out, if it's not the regular thing for it to be rented out. In other words, again, one of them could say, I'll buy you out. I'll either buy you out or you buy me out. That they could do. But if neither of them are buying each other out, and they can't split it, so now the question is, what are they going to do? So now the choice is, so the brother could insist, I'm going to use it as it was used till now. That's an osna avla atzmi, which means it wasn't a commercial Beis Habad. It wasn't a commercial merchetz. It was a personal one. There's any yochel lokav ochiv lahaskeresam. They continue using it like it was used b'chay avim. And the usher which has a need for this merchetz, and he has a need for the Beis Habad, he says to the oni, kach l'chozesim, ubei v'aseisim Beis Habad. In other words, this is for private use, so you could use it. You could use it just like I could use it. Lepel, he has no zeisim to use it. But Lepel, since he's capable of doing it, so therefore he can't insist that we're going to go ahead and start renting it out. Or knei l'chavadim v'yavei v'yirchesu b'merchetz. So b'kitzer, the din is, again, if something is yesh be'gidei chalukah, so that either shutiv could insist that we're going to divide it. If it's ein b'gidei chalukah, so they can't insist they could have divided, but they could insist that either I'll buy you out or you buy me out. Masha'enken, if one of them is not capable of saying either buy me out or buy you out, in other words, he's not able to buy the other person out, he's just asking the other person to buy him out, but he's not able to buy the other person out, so then he can't say anything. He doesn't really have a taina. And he can't come along and say, let's start using it in a different manner. Because since it's normally used, if it's a Beis Habad or a Beis HaMerchetz, which was used for private use, so therefore the other brother could insist, no, we're going to continue using it as our father used it, which was what it was made for, to use as a private use. You have no use for it. Okay, that's unfortunate. But Lepel, he's not going to be Mavater. He's not Mechuyev to be Mavater. And the poor one can't force the richer one to go ahead and buy chelke. Elim kain amarle, unless he tells him, knei mimeni, either buy from me, or sell it to me. How I have no money. He's a ani, Either I'll go ahead and borrow money and sell it, or I'll go ahead and sell the whole thing to someone else. In other words, I'm willing to go ahead and sell this whole merchitz to someone else and pay you half of the money that you're supposed to get, and I'll take half of the money. Whereas I have no need for this merchitz of the Beis Abad, and we own this merchitz of the Beis Abad together. So I can't force you to buy it. I can't force you to go start using it. We should start using it commercially, but I could force you that we should be able to sell it. How can I sell it? I can't buy you out. So the answer is I'll go ahead and borrow money and buy you out, and then sell it, and then that's how I'll pay the money. Or I'll go ahead and sell the whole thing, and Memela, I'll give you half of the money, and I'll take half of the money. So if he's Elim Ken Amalek, Knei Mimeni, a Mecherli, Varini Levi Vekena, a Mechel Acherim Vekena, so that is a dinim. That is the dinim. Omar Kolechim, each one is saying, Eini Kaina, I don't want to buy it. El Hareini Mecher Chelke, each one is saying, I want to sell my chelik, but I'm not interested in buying it. I'm not interested in buying your chelik. I'm not interested in buying your chelik. But each one is willing to go ahead and sell it. So then it's Mechene Selachir. So then they sell it to someone else. In other words, you have two people together, they're shutfim. So again, there's one option, if it's Yesh B'Knei Chalukah, to divide the shutfis, and they divide the item. If there's no such an option, so then you could say, either I'll buy you out or you'll buy me out. You can't come along and say, let's change how we're using the item. That you can't do. You could say either I'll buy you out or you'll buy me out. Now, Lepel, if you have no option to say I'll buy you out because you have no money, so you have an eitzah to say let's sell it to someone else. I'll sell my chelik to someone else, or I'll sell both of the chalakim to someone else. Both of the chalakim to someone else, and then I'll pay you for your half. Now, Omer kol echad mem eni mecher. Each one says I don't want to sell it. El kol echad mem reitz sheyikne chelik chaveri. Each one wants to buy the other one out. Or someone says I want to buy you out, and the other one says I'll buy you out. Neither of them want to buy it, no one wants to sell it. So what do we do? So now they are shutfim. So what's the din of shutfim? Now, so again, so we have this situation where you have shutfim that don't want to be shutfim anymore, and the question is, what could they do? So either you divide the item, or you say good or yogud, or you say either I'll buy you out or you'll buy me out, or we'll sell it all together, or we'll both sell our chelik to someone else. Whatever, that's these options. Now, Lepel, what happens if Lepel, neither of them want to sell, neither of them want to buy, and they remain shutfim? They remain shutfim. So what's the din? How do they act as shutfim? So I say, if this is a place which was a commercial place, is maskir and esei, so they rent it out, and the chilk and schari, and they divide whatever profit they get from rent. Now, if it's not something which is used l'schar, is im chotzer. Let's say you have a chotzer, and they both own a chotzer together. Neither of them want to buy the chotzer, neither of them want to sell the chotzer, and they own the chotzer together. So what are they going to do? So the din is b'negei chotzer sheichlen beishana shana. So 1 year one of them lives there, and the other year the other one lives there. Why can't they live there together? For both of them to live in the chotzer together would be impossible. They would do things in the chotzer. They would do things in the chotzer that needed privacy. And memela, people don't want to live together in the same chotzer. There would be a lot of functions that they would do in the chotzer that they wouldn't want to be with someone else. Shaharei ein badin chalukah. We're talking about a chotzer she'ein badin chalukah. If it would be a chotzer she'esh b'dei chalukah, so then they could divide and say half of the chotzer will be mine, half of the chotzer will be yours. But we're dealing with an item like we're talking about something ein badin chalukah. So memela, if you have a chotzer, so one person uses it 1 year and the other person uses it another year. Why a year? Why not a month? So he says ve'ein adam. People don't really want to move from one chotzer to another chotzer every month. So, so that's the eitzah. They both remain shutfim. So memela, if there's a chotzer, so they use it every year. I'm not 100% sure that tzir. I know you have a chotzer. The chotzer has a bias. So the person, where does the person live? Every year, for 1 year he lives in this house, 1 year lives in this house. I'm not really sure this tzir of michatzer l'chatzer, but that's what we're saying. That a chatzer you use every year. In other words, each one, you make a division, a division amongst each other, and each one's like, one uses it 1 year, the other one uses it another year. That's what it says. Now, v'im merchetzu, if it's a merchetz which could be used together, is nichnasalam shneim tamid b'chol yom. That could be used together b'chol yom. V'chein kol davar sheroy lishtamish beitamid. This is something which is used on a regular basis. Ve'eni osel ischar. It's not something which is used to rent out. It's a normally that's used by the people themselves. Okay, merchetz, a matzor, even let's say a bed. So these are things which are used by them themselves. A sefer Torah is eni yochel leimale hishtamish ate yom v'ani yom. You'll use it one day and I'll use it another day. So obviously they're going to have to figure out what time one person is going to use the matzah, what time the other one is going to use the matzah. But on the other hand, you can't say I'll use it for a month and you'll use it for a month. I had this matzah and I'd like to use it every day. Obviously, they're going to have to figure out the times when this person's going to use the matzah and this is going to use the matzah. Notice, well, matzah is l'chura, a pillow, something they use for sleeping. So l'chura, they're going to have to adjust amongst themselves when this person is going to use it, when this person is going to use it. That's it. That's the din. So we're talking about people that are shutfim, and they're shutfim with each other. They both own something together, and the question is, how do they deal with each other? So either one could insist that we divide the shutfis, or one could insist that either I buy you out or you buy me out. And if that's not possible, so then you have to learn either if you live with each other. So then if we're talking about a chutzner, so one of them uses it 1 year, the other one uses it another year. And if we're dealing with other items which each one could use together, either they could use together, that would be a merchetz, they could use together, and then there's things that they need every day. So again, each one uses it every day. And obviously they'll have to figure out when one will use it, when the other one will use it. Yeah. Now this was talking about they both own the chutzner together. Now, echad hasoichim mechaveri mixes chutzner. You have a chutzner, someone owns a chutzner, and the other person went ahead and rented part of this chutzner. Or he rented part of the sadr. And lepeil she'ein ba din chalukah. There's no din chalukah in this chutzner, or there's no din chalukah in the sadr, which the Ram didn't yet say what a din chalukah is. So one person already owns the chutzner, and lepeil, someone else rented it from him, or someone owns the field and the other person rented the field from him. Or you have two people that rented a field together. So again, over here they could say to each other, listen, I can't really tolerate this mutual use of something. Whereas I thought I could, but lepeil I can't. And therefore I want to make a division. Either rent from me my part because I don't want to be together with you, or rent out to me your part. However, is chelken. So again, the same din. So this din that we learned benegea, someone that buys something from someone, could also be by people that rent. Someone that ends up renting together with someone else, either that one of them is the owner, one of them is the renter, or they're both the renters, and then they realize, one of them realizes that they can't really do this together, it's not working out well, so therefore they could either insist that they could divide the rented area, one part is going to be for one, and one part will be for the other, and mamish be a chalukah, or if they can't do that, so either one of them will rent from the other, or the other one will rent back from this one. So in other words, they again the same principle, that they say to each other, it's the principle that's called known as good yagud, either I'll buy you out or you'll buy me out. Now again, the Rambam keeps saying that if it's a din chalukah, ain't by din chalukah. Halacha dalet, ezehu din chalukah. What does it mean a place has a din chalukah? So the rule is azay, kol she'ilu yicholek l'fi hashutfim. If this area will be divided according to the shutfim, in other words, that each shutf will get a piece of the area according to his shutfis, and nevertheless yagia lepachis b'hem. The one that will get the smallest chelik will get a chelik sheshema kel karyolov, will have the same name as the whole area. So then that's called kidei chalukah. So if you have l'mashal a field, and if you're going to divide the field, each part of the field that each one will get will be called a field, as we'll soon see b'hemshech. Or you divide a chutzner, and each part of the chutzner will be called a chutzner. So that's considered a makim sheyesh b'kidei chalukah. Masha'inkin, if you have an area that if you divide it and each part of the area is not going to be called with the same name that the entire area is called, because it's going to be too small to be called with that name, that's called ein b'kidei chalukah. That's the din. We'll read again. Ezu din chalukah, kol, she'ilu yicholik, lefi hashutfim, if it will be divided according to the shutfim, yagia lepachis shbehem, the one that will get the smallest part will get a chelik, sheshema kel karyolov, that it's the same name as the entire area, so then that's called Kedei Chalukah. Avalim ein shem hakel nikra ala achelik. If when you'll divide it, that area that you're going to get is not going to be named with the same area, with the same name like the entire area before it was divided, so that's called ein bodin chalukah. That's called ein bodin chalukah. Ketzah. Kol chotzer she'ein ba arba amas al arba amas. In order for a chotzer to be called a chotzer, it has to have arba amas al arba amas. So if it's a chotzer has no arba amas al arba amas, is ein a kriya chotzer. And al derech zeh v'chol soda she'ein ba kedei zrias tisha kabim. If you have a field that doesn't have enough of an area that should be able to plant over there 9 kav, which is 1.5 saw, is ein a kriya soda. That's not called a soda. V'chol gino she'ein bo kedei zrias chatzi kav. If you have a garden that doesn't have a big enough area that you could plant a half a kav of seeds, is ein a kriya gina. And v'chol pardes, an orchard she'ein bo kedei zrias shleisha kav, that doesn't have an area which you could plant over there shleisha kavim, is ein a kriya pardes. Lefichach ein chilkenes achotzer. You don't divide the chotzer. When we say that one of them should insist to go ahead and divide the chotzer, achi year arba amas l'chol echad v'echad nashutfim. Whereas if you have 2 shutfim in a chotzer, and now one of them wanted to divide it, so he could only insist to divide the chotzer if each one of the shutfim will receive a dalet amas, which is called a chotzer. If there's 3 shutfim, so then he has to insist that he wants to have an area. Each one has to be able to get an area, which is dalet amas. And also v'leis hasoda, you can insist to divide a field that each one that's going to receive a portion of this field will have an area which is k'zei zriyas tisha kabel. And v'leis hagina, you can't insist to divide a garden v'leis hapardes. So unless each one will be able to receive that size of an area which is the same, which has the same name as the entire area, only then could you insist to make actually a division. By medvar mamurim, that we have these shiurim, that we say that if it has just tisha kabim for a soda, or less over there for a gina, for a pardes, is considered a dover choshev, and therefore it has a shem pardes and the shem soda. That was Be'eretz Yisrael. Be'eretz Yisrael was a mokim choshev, so even 9 kabim was also considered enough of a choshev that it should be called a soda. Aval be'bovel kietze, but in Bovel, where over there wasn't so choshev, ein chelkenes hasoda ad sheyeba kedei charishos yem lozeh v'charishos yem lozeh. In other words, that it would take a day in order to plow the field. That would be a large enough field that it takes a day to plow the field. That would be a large enough field to be called a field. V'leis apardes, and an orchard achiyeh shleishim v'shisha ilonis lozeh u'shleishim v'shisha ilonis lozeh, which is kedei avedas adam echad b'yem echad. In other words, again, when you're going to hire someone to work on the field on this pardes, you want to be able to hire a person to work for a full day. So if you can have a small orchard, so you can hire a person, the person's not going to have enough work for a full day. A person doesn't want to work for a half a day. So you're going to have to pay him for a half a day's work for a full day's work. So that doesn't work out well. So therefore it has to be a large enough pardes that when you hire a worker, that person will have a day's work. Al derazeh, you'll hire someone to plow the field. So you'll plow the field, it'll take a day to plow the field. Or v'sodin shemashka nesu bekeli, if you have a soda, which you have to irrigate it with a keli, so in other words, it has to be a day, a field, which you're going to have to hire a worker to irrigate the field, and it'll take him a day to irrigate the field. Whereas if it's a field which is smaller, so small that it'll take less than a day to irrigate it, or less than a day to tend to it, or to plow it, so that doesn't pay to buy such a field, to have such a field. Because lapel, you're going to have to hire someone, and you're not going to it's not going to be easy to find someone to work for you. You'll have to pay extra for less, so memela, so it doesn't worth it. So memela, so bekitzer, and Eretz Yisrael is the shiurim that we mentioned before, which is a soda was tisha kabim, and a gina, which is a chotzi kav, and a pardes was a shleisha kabim. But masha'in came in Bovel, the nekudas hadvar, or in other places, the nekudas hadvarim is that it should be a place where in order to work on it, it would take a day. Either a field, you have to plow it a day, a field that needs to be irrigated, it has to be a field that's large enough that it takes a day to irrigate that field. And al derazeh, if you have an orchard, it has to have 36 trees, because that would take a day for the person to go ahead and work on these trees. Halacha hey, ein chilkenes atrakl and v'leis amerin. These are different types of houses, large houses. Or v'leis hashevach, a place where doves are. Or v'leis beis abad, which is an olive press. V'leis hamerchetz, v'leis hatalis. Achiyeh b'chol chelik mem kedei lezeh kedei lezeh. That each part should be what it was originally. In other words, you have a merchetz, so each part should be a merchetz, or each part should be a traklin, each part should be a meirin. In other words, if you're going to divide it, in each part will be a smaller one, but on the other end, it'll still retain that same identity as it was originally when it was whole. In other words, in merchetz cholku, if they divide a merchetz, each part should be a merchetz. So if you have merchetz, let's say it has two parts, and without these two parts, it's not a merchetz. So one is going to get one part, the other person is going to get the other part. One person's going to get the part where they get dressed, and the other one's going to get the part where they wash themselves. So obviously, neither of them is a merchetz. You have to have a division that should make that each part should be a merchetz. Evim shevach, al there is a place where you keep the doves. Each place should have a name shevach. V'chein betalis ubishar kol advarim. So in order to make a division, it has to be that you're dividing it in a way that each part still retains the same name of the original thing. Now, there's not enough of it to divide that each part should be called a merchetz, each part should be called a shevach, etc. So then it's mailen eisen badam. So then you assess its value. And either you sell me your part, or you buy from me my part. Knows either you sell me your part or you buy from me my part. Amar echad chalek zeh. In other words, let's divide this and let's divide it not equally. In other words, let's divide it not equally. It'll be that you'll get a part which still has that name of this. Let's say we're talking about a shirt. I'm not sure if chalek zeh is talking about mixed a division or means a shirt. But I'll call upon a chalek zeh. Let's say you'll divide this. You'll get the portion which still retains the name of the original item, and I'll get the smaller portion, which doesn't have the name of the original portion, item, but lapel, you'll get a portion that has the original item. Let's divide this. The parts aren't going to be equal. I'll take the smaller part. And you take the larger part, and the part that you're going to take is going to be a part that, let's say, if everyone would get that part, we'll be able to divide it. So I'm giving you that part. I'm giving you that part, and I'm being mevater, and I'm getting a smaller part. So the din is ein shemlei. You can't force that person to take the larger part, and you'll take the smaller part. In other words, if it's ein b'kedei chalukah, which means that it's not enough that everyone should get a portion which has the name on it, the original name on it. So you can't force one of them to say, you take the portion that has the original name on it, and I'll take less. Because what's coming out is that he's really getting a favor from him. He's getting a present. I'm not interested in a present. I'm interested in getting a chalukah. And since lapel, this item is not something which is divisible, that each one should get a part which has the name of the original item, so therefore we go ahead and sell it. The lahel ve'im chalukah b'shava is areya nomayla midam, and we're going to assess it in its value. And either you'll buy me out or I'll buy you out. And if neither of us will do that, so then we'll sell it and then we'll divide the money. Now, the Rosh argues on this. Then the Rosh holds that since Sof Kol Sof the person is offering it for his benefit, he's not trying. Shcheinim matana siyichya means you're giving me a matana. Over here, this person is interested in his benefit. He wants to have part of this item, even if it's less, in order to be able to keep part of this item. And for that, he's being mavater that person should have a greater portion. And lepel, you can't divide it unless that person gets a greater portion. That wouldn't go into the gather of matana. That's the Shitas Harosh. And the Rambam holds no, that also goes into the gather of matana, and therefore he can insist, I don't want to take a matana, and therefore he can insist to divide it equally.